Steve Jobs, who said it at his Stanford University speech. He said that if you haven't found why you're here, stop everything you're doing, go and find out why you're here, and then everything changes after that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 6 of Exponential Africa, where we bring you the very best in thought leadership, tech, and innovation to the African continent from around the world. And this season, we're going to go deeper than ever into exponential technologies that are reshaping our world, not just what's coming, but what it means for leadership, for Africa, and for us as humans. Today, I'm very excited about this kickoff episode as we're talking about Agentic AI, AI that doesn't just respond, but acts, and AI that can reason, plan, execute, and make decisions on your behalf. And here's the twist: as machines become more autonomous, and we have, this implicit need for real human connection, for real life trust and leadership, and this is going to become more valuable than ever. And we've got a very special guest today. I'm excited to announce John Sanei, who is a dear friend and a leading global voice on AI, trusted by some of the most influential organizations and governments in the world. He's a global futurist, ranked one of the world's top 5 futurist professionals by 2025 by Global Gurus Research. He's the author of 11 books now, with a new one coming out soon, which is pretty incredible. I can't wait to read it. I still remember Watch Your Moonshot, one of my favorites, his first book. He's an advisor and keynote speaker working at the intersection of human behavior, technology, and long-term decision-making. He's a co-host of an award-winning podcast, The Expansive, global expert with Singularity University, and faculty contributor at Duke Corporate Education. And so to unpack this interesting conversation, let me welcome futurist strategist and one of Africa's sharpest minds on the future of work and human potential, John Sanei. John, great to be with you.
What's up? Thank you. What a long intro. Jeez, that took long. I must shorten that intro a lot more, but thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be with you, Mick. Wonderful to be chatting about such a pertinent topic that's cooking right now in the world.
I mean, John, it's pretty unbelievable how you've modeled your life and the way you look at the world and your mindset. I mean, you're like 180 miles an hour speed train, non-stop, just moving. I mean, this year alone, how many countries have you been to in 2026 already?
Yeah, it's been a bunch already. But you know what I always say is it's not hard work. When you hit that flow state, it becomes quite simple and quite easy. I think it was Steve Jobs who said it at his Stanford University speech. He said that if you haven't found why you're here, stop everything you're doing, go and find out why you're here, and then everything changes after that. And for me, it happened in my early 40s, where I discovered that this is really what I love the most, and it really brings me so much excitement and so much joy. So yes, this year we've already got nearly 40 keynotes booked, I think in about 20 countries around the world. And so far, it's just busier than ever, and I'm having more fun than ever. So yeah, it's fantastic. I love it, and I'm so grateful that it's available for me to do and to be part of.
Amazing. And I mean, I think what it also gives you such a great global perspective on the world, and for today's topic, I think it's quite pertinent to have that global perspective on Agentic.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, you're so right. But you know what's so funny, Mick? Wherever I go in the world, everybody's having the same issues. There might be some cultural nuances, and there might be some history that they have that's different, but very much the same. And we constantly see the same briefs coming in. AI is moving fast. People are not adopting quick enough. So most organizations are having this issue where people are not adopting to AI quickly enough. And my response always is to the brief is that you're asking people to adopt a technology that's going to replace a lot of their existing skills. So there's an internal dialogue that's stopping them from adopting because it's scary for them. Think about corporates that are looking at agentic AI to start to replace departments. So most of the people are stuck. And so what we have to do is firstly tell you why you're stuck. Secondly, tell you what the future of work looks like. And it's not always inside corporates. And thirdly, how do you apply some of these principles into evolving yourself into what we need to do in order to be able to add value to the world in a new way? So that's a layered process that we need to take. So yes, the global aspect helps me, but it also shows me that all humans are humans, and we all are struggling with the adaptability to what's coming.
I mean, so let's start with something simple, just to kick things off. What is agentic AI in plain language from your point of view, and how's it different from the AI tools people already been using? ChatGPT's been out for a few years already. Large language models have been evolving at this incredibly fast pace. How's it different now with this agentic layer?
I think the fundamental difference between agentic AI and all the other AIs before it, its ability to make decisions on its own and to start to create other AIs for what it needs. So it's a propagating process of multiplying itself and taking decisions for itself to start to make progress in what the task you'd given it to do. So you almost have created a self-propelling intelligence that is now able to get out there and do things on its own. And remember, right now, ChatGPT 5.2 has an IQ of 150, and it's doubling on intelligence every 7 months. So if agentic AI is doing this right now with Claude Bot and with all the other agentic platforms, think about what it's going to do with 300 IQ points and with 600 IQ points. I mean, it's unimaginable. So I think agentic AI is just this ability for it to make decisions for itself. What do you think agentic AI is? Because I mean, you're also into this topic so bigly.
Yeah, for me, I love this idea of it's like, I use this analogy to say it's like giving the keys to your office to AI.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like saying, here's my keys, go into my office, run my business. And instead of being physical places in your office, it's your digital places in your office. It's your Slack, it's your
great analogy.
It's all these different tools that we use every day now that can be run with AIs and can be rolling. I mean, I've got
it's
running there. It's working in the background, 24/7 employee.
Look, I mean, I went through a friend of mine's Claude yesterday for an hour. He took me through it for an hour, and I left that with a headache, to be honest, because Claude is as amazing as it is. You still need quite a developer's mindset to set it up, and it's in its infancy stage. And the headache that I had at the end of the talk with him was just realizing what it's going to do to human value. Like the value we've added to the world over the last 200 years is almost becoming wiped out overnight because of what this thing is able to do, So it's a very exciting and terrifying process at exactly the same time,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Ray Kurzweil's been saying for the last, 30 years, is that this acceleration is just continuing. And, because we used to hear about when the LLMs first came out, it's like you heard, okay, cool, now there's GPT-3, and then it's GPT-3.5 a few months later. And now, now it's like almost weekly. It feels like almost weekly there's a new model coming out and a new announcement. And as soon as it's going to be daily, and then it's going to be hourly, and then it's going to be minutely. You're going to
minutely, hear about minutely. I like that language. Even the secondly.
Secondly.
Look, the thing is that it's self-propelling. That's the thing. The self-propelling of it has no time attached to it because it's happening at such a pace. And I love the fact that even in the agents inside ClaudeBot aren't speaking English anymore to each other. They're speaking their own language because that's how quickly they need to move. So the concept of time and the concept of adding value is consistently changing at a dramatic pace. So what we used to be able to do in 6 months is now 2 months, and then 1 month, and then 3 weeks, and then secondly. So this is what's really so difficult for us to understand. And obviously being part of Singularity, exponentiality is so difficult for our brains to understand. And then Ray Kurzweil's latest interview, I know you watched because we spoke about it, he says that's the problem with most people, is that exponentiality is lost on our brains. We don't quite grasp it, which he does. And that's why he's been able to be so good with these predictions. So
and all of this fear, I love that he's still so optimistic about everything. He says he's 10 out of 10 optimistic about the future of humans.
Well, understand, I also agree, because what AI is going to do eventually is going to integrate itself into our decision-making processes. We won't know where that decision comes from. And Ray said this in the interview. He says, you don't know where an idea comes from. So where does it come from? So if that idea has got AI linked to it, where's that idea coming from? It's still coming out of almost nowhere, right? But we also have to realize that AI the intelligence that it's giving us is not artificial. That's real intelligence. We're just calling it artificial intelligence, but it's going to integrate into us. And we're going to start becoming superhumans, being able to make decisions at such a pace and at such breadth that it's going to shift the way we and what we add value to the world with. So yes, it is scary, but it's a huge evolution. And I always tell my audiences, if the tractor didn't arrive, all of us would still be farmers. And none of us want to be farmers. And so it was hell of a scary back then. This is the next level of hell of a scary. So the most important thing we can do is to center ourselves as often as possible. So to constantly center ourselves and to work through the fear and turn it into excitement. And that's a very internal skill that we all have to develop.
I mean, I think, yeah, that leads me on to this next question is like, so, you know, as leaders now, there's so much fundamentally changing for us as leaders and what it means to be a leader and what it means to be in a role in a corporate or in an organization. What do you think actually changes and how do we execute tasks and make decisions as a leader in the future now?
It's such a big question, and it's a question I consistently get asked by my clients. And I would always have to remind people is that the organizational structure was built to bring efficiencies to a system. And we realize that those efficiencies are not going to be built through an organizational structure. They're all going to be built with agents. So the whole role of a leader is going to change. And so depending on how far into the future you want to go, but I think we have this sort of like maybe a short roadmap of organizations starting to dissolve in their numbers of staff and start to add value in new ways. But I think over the next 5 years, all of us will become individual companies. I don't think the structure of an organization is necessary in a world where agents are doing things 24/7. The whole idea of an organization can be dissolved into a bunch of agents. And we can see that already where we see massive sections of organizations being replaced by agents within organizations. And so what's the next step is the whole organization gets replaced by an agent. So again, I mean, we listen to the same podcast, you and I. So you talk about moonshots, talking about the $1 billion company by one person. And it's not a hard thing to do when you extrapolate Instagram being sold with 12 people for $1 billion 10 years ago, extrapolate that into now 1 employee or 2 employees. And so when you think about leadership in organizations, you have to ask a bigger question. Will organizations be valid in the future? And they'll be totally different. And so the leader of the organization won't have the same roles of managing people and creating career goals. And so we have to realize that we're moving away from a specialist environment to a generalist environment. And the generalist environment and the specialist have one fundamental difference between them. The specialist environment chose a role inside the options that we had at the university and fitted ourselves into that role. Accountant, lawyer, PR, HR, whatever it was. The generalist prioritizes their own individual identity and then builds a bunch of agents and people around them to achieve it. And so you realize that actually what the leader of the future is about is developing a personal identity to answer a one burning question. What problem do I want to solve? And what do I need around me to help me solve that problem? And once that problem is solved, then get on to the next problem. And so you realize that leadership and organizational structures, the way we understand them, I really don't think will be around over the next few years. There'll be no point to have them around. They're quite slow-moving, bureaucracy-full type of things. And the way I like to think about it is that organizations are Boeings, and what we all need to become are jet fighters. And that's the future of leadership. It's individual jet fighters. I don't know if you agree.
Amazing. I love it. No, I totally love it. I mean, I think just there's so many good points in there. I think just firstly, the 1 billion person company, I think has happened.
Yes.
Because if you think about OpenClaw, if you think about OpenClaw, Peter Steinberger, the founder, got bought by OpenAI yesterday. I'm sure it was more than $1 billion.
Wow.
I'm sure.
Wow. He was on Lex Friedman, eh? That guy on Lex Friedman. I was watching an interview with him. That's the guy.
He actually was he's been losing money in the last 3 weeks of running this, but
wow.
He got, and we don't know the amount he got bought for, but I mean, it must be more than $1 billion. I would just suspect with the amount of,
there we go.
A network he created just from this product that is free.
It's free. But Nick, let's go even one step further. You've got agents working with other agents creating $100 million businesses. Like Think about that. There's not even a human involved. So that has to beg you a bigger question. What is money? Like, if agents can create hundreds of millions of dollars worth of value, what are we doing here? Like, how are we going to compete against that? That's almost an impossibility. The whole construct of money, adding value, GDP, all of it has to be rethought, because all of it doesn't make sense.
Totally. And I mean, I think on that point, it's really going to be about emotional intelligence. Ultimately, yes, the future of our decisions and the future of us communicating and collaborating is going to be around our emotional intelligence. How do you have that deal with other humans? Yes. And as a leader currently now, I think you need to be able to deal with humans and AIs in the mix. Is learn about coordination and how to design systems rather than just your traditional roles. And as you were saying, and I love this from your talk at Singularity, was around how IRL becomes more important in the mix.
So the way you,
why do you think this takes place?
Yeah, sure. The way you want to think about it is the agricultural era prioritized muscles, the industrial era prioritized mind, the AI era will prioritize emotions. And so the currency has gone from physical to mental to emotional. And so we don't quite pay rent yet with emotional currency. I get that. But this is where we're moving towards, because if adaptability becomes the most important skill of unlearning and relearning and unlearning and relearning based on the generalist idea, then what's most important is the question you ask yourself is, who am I? What am I doing here? And what problem do I want to deeply solve? And when you ask people in the corporate world, they've never asked that question of themselves because society has never asked them the question. So now emotional intelligence is not just about, yes, you're empathetic and you're bigger than the trigger points. It's about, who are you? Like, the deep question of what it is that you want to be solving, the problems that you want to be solving. And you realize when you are in a anxious state and when you are in a hurried state, he spoke about the suffering mind. What's his name? The great speaker from Singularity, David Roberts, spoke about the suffering mind. And if you're in the suffering mind, you're not emotionally intelligent, which means you can't answer the question of who you are and what problem you want to solve. You're much more worried about fitting into a system that used to celebrate your obedience to the system. So when we think about emotional intelligence, we have to think about it in multiple levels. The best way to measure emotional intelligence is how quickly can you get over a trigger. That's really important, because if you stay triggered for a long time, you have low emotional intelligence. The second thing you have to ask yourself is, what is emotional intelligence? And emotional intelligence is made up of two things: awareness and perspective. Your awareness is based on your memories. So if you're carrying trauma in your memories, your awareness is stuck in looking for what it wants to look for. Perspective is based on the state of your brain. If you have a suffering mind, your perspective onto the world is one of defense or attack, because that's what most people think the world is about. And that's based on an emotional intelligence that's been wired by the past and by a suffering mind. And these two things keep your emotional intelligence low. So the skills of the future are healing your past, calming your nervous system. And as you do that, it becomes clearer who you are and what problems you want to solve. And then you can go into the world and use agents and use people around you to want to solve those problems. So the most important skill is emotional intelligence, but understand what it is and how to measure it.
I love that. I remember you talking about that trigger moment. And I've used that a lot since I heard you say it a couple of weeks ago in Dubai. Is around when I get triggered by something, be aware of it, have the intentionality in my awareness, so then I know that I can actually rise up and see myself from above and try look at the situation in a more calm.
And think about it, Mick. How many personalities do we have around the world that have got their whole personality is based on a trigger? The whole personality. They're just constantly angry or constantly sad or constantly anxious or constantly ADHD or that's all trigger points that just haven't been helped and solved. It's actually quite a simple thing to want to sort it out once you understand it.
Absolutely. And I just want to, I want to keep us moving here. I want to just shift gears back to AI. And just looking at everything that in this, the way it's moving and how fast it's moving. And my open claw is moving really fast behind me.
Yeah,
it's like distracting me a bit. But
Yeah.
what are the risks if we like over delegate to agentic systems? If we know we just everything is done by the AI. How do we make sure we don't build friction back into decision making? And what guardrails can we create? That we're
Look,
not
I
just
think initially as human beings, we always do the same thing, right? We see it, we get greedy, and we just go all in, and then we realize we've gone too far in, then we got to come back a little bit. So I think this is going to be a process of all of us testing it and seeing how far it can go, and then how far we need to pull it back, and then allow the AI to become more intelligent, learn the behavior. Look, it's a loop, right? It's a learning loop. And so most of us are giving it far too much confidence and far too much responsibility initially, and then it starts to solve itself. I think the bigger question is, what does value look like in a world when agentic AI is doing everything in the background and everybody's got it? What's value? Because if you're doing it, everybody else is doing it. How are you adding value to the world when agents are speaking to each other or consistently, no human in the loop? Yes, there's a big risk, but that's us as human beings. We continuously do that. We push the envelope, and then we have to come back, retract, rethink, loop it in again, and keep going. But this is going to fundamentally shift the dynamics of human value add. And so that's the bigger question here, is that AI's ability to do what we do at a hyper pace is becoming more and more relevant and more available for all of us to act into. And so, yes, the scare or the danger is we give it too much responsibility, but we'll fix that, like everything else. Like, remember when ChatGPT 1 and 2 came out, we thought it knew everything, and then it started hallucinating, and we were like, what the hell is it talking about? Then we learned hallucinations, then we came back. And so that's the process of us getting better and better understanding it. But I do think that it's going to elevate each and every one of us to become superhuman. Each and every one of us will have the collective intelligence at our fingertip. So think about that. We've created a machinery that's encapsulated human intelligence in its entirety. That's a huge thing, that all of us have now potential to make decisions based on everything humans have ever learned.
And you see, you've automatically got that wisdom. You've got the wisdom of the ages at the speed of light.
Ages, yeah. Now that gets integrated into your thinking. And so when you think of a problem, you've got that whole lens to make decisions from. Well, you're going to be superhuman. You're going to be Superman. Everybody's going to be Superman. Think about the elevation that it's going to give all of us. And look at what happened to the population increase when we industrialized food manufacturing. We became 8 billion people. We were always at a few hundred million, then maybe a billion, then maybe 2 billion, 8 billion. So think about that rise in production, innovation, drive, growth. Now add on to that every single 8 billion people will have the superhuman decision-making process. Man, it's almost unfathomable what's going to happen. It's unfathomable, actually. But I'm also optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, Kathy Wood's predicting 7% increase in GDP growth in America, which is unheard of, that type of growth.
Unheard of, yeah. But again, even GDP, like measuring GDP, I don't get that. Because GDP, what is that? Production per citizen. And so you add agents, and everybody's got agents. Like, I actually don't know. I mean, it's too smart for me, bro. I have no idea.
What do you think it's going to mean for founders and governments and businesses in Africa? Like for us on the African continent, we're still playing catch up.
Yeah.
We don't have our own models, and there is Strive Masinga's making AI factories, and there is some investment coming now. But do you see this as a threat or an opportunity for people in Africa?
I spoke at a conference about the future of Africa, and one of South Africa's ex-presidents was there talking about the potential and the things that we have to do to step into it. The problem with Africa is that we suffer from Africanism, and we often don't think we're good enough to play in the world. And many of countries in Africa are still in survival mode. And so we have to do a huge job at elevating ourselves individually as Africans to start to take full advantage of what this technology can give us. And the biggest problem is not the technology, it's the adoption and elevation of us as Africans that need to step up. And so we can have all the speeches in the world telling us of what we should do. And yes, we can leapfrog. We don't need telephone lines. Now we can go to cell phones, all those stories. But if we don't individually shift our identities as Africans to realize that we can add value to the world in a very unique way, we're never going to do anything. It's going to stay stuck in the past. And so we have to wake up. We have to individually wake up, and then as a collective to wake up. And that's, from all the travel in the world, it becomes very distinct, the culture of a country and the culture of a continent, of how it sees itself in the future. Did you see that stat recently of Americans thinking about AI and Chinese thinking about AI? They said that Americans, 85% or more of Chinese are optimistic about AI. 30% of Americans were optimistic about AI.
Oh, wow.
So you can see that the tonality of America is fearful, Chinese is optimistic. Now you come into the GCC region, you've been here. How optimistic is everybody here? Everybody's optimistic, on the go, let's go. There's more to do, more to do. You go back to Africa, people are like, still talking about other things. Like the optimism is not even there. You know what I mean? So we have to do a lot around the cultural nuance of who you think you are and what you can do with this technology. The Chinese are obviously going to win this race just on an emotional level of what they think the potential is. And America is going to start to not feed into what Chinese do. Definitely, you can't compete with that. 30% versus 80%. Like how? You can't compete.
Yeah. So we actually need an education transformation in Africa.
We need an upgrade of awareness, upgrade of potential, upgrade of possibility. And Africa sits in its own loop of always thinking that it needs the West to help it. It always needs this to come and save it. And that's the problem that we have. And even as a privileged African, and I know I am a privileged African, even me coming into international markets, and you know this, you come internationally and you don't think you're good enough to play with these people. And then you realize you are good enough. But you didn't know because you weren't playing against them. This whole time you were so far flung on the other side of the world, you didn't realize you could play against these people and you could do well. And so the lack of exposure and the lack of competition between us and the Western world keeps us stuck in only playing our own little game. And the analogy I always use is, so Africa plays in the PSL, the international world plays in the Premiership. Like, think about that. Now, if you were playing football and you trained with the Premiership people, you would just get better just because of your environment. And the PSL doesn't do that because the environment doesn't allow it to grow.
No, I love that. That's a really great insight there. And so true. I think it's totally true. We're stuck in, you just need to be on the field. You need to be on the same field as everyone else.
Yeah, that's it. We're not on the same field. Well, great analogy. We're not playing on the same. We're on the bench, sitting, hoping that somebody will give us an opportunity to go and play. And we just get further and further back. I mean, I see this from my own life.
I don't know if you saw recently in China, did you see that show for the Chinese New Year with the robots? It was like insane. They had these robots doing unbelievable dance routines and choreography like never seen before. Whereas, it's, in America, they're just showing them how they can fold the clothes and it's very slow. Where the Chinese are doing full-on acrobatics with their robots.
Look, always people say Dubai is the city of the future, but Shanghai is the city of the future. Like, they're on another level. So, and also because we don't have access to their media, we only indoctrinated by American media. So all we see is American media, whereas the Chinese are streaks ahead, streaks. And I don't think there's any catching up with them because they just, you know what it is? China also works in a hive mentality. So they work for China because they're proud of China. They want to move China into the future. America's individual. Africa's not even on the playing field. And so you have to realize the competition we have is a very deeply identity competition. The Chinese see themselves as the leaders. Americans used to see themselves as the leaders. Africa is not even playing on the field. So like, there's a huge identity game that we have to actually start to talk about, which is a much deeper question.
I think that's really, really a deep insight, and part of that, especially in the AI game, is we need our own data sovereignty. We need our own infrastructure, so that we need like our own rackets, or we need our own balls, to be on the field, to be able to play with the equipment. And at the moment, it's lacking.
We don't have it.
It hurts our identity and it hurts our confidence.
Absolutely.
In the space. But I just want to just end off with some practical actions that we can give
Yes.
everybody. You know, how do we make it practical for people to get into this agentic AI world? You know, maybe, you know, in the next 30 or 60 or 90 days. What can you say, like, what can people do in the next 2 months or 3 months?
Yeah. The first thing you have to realize is there's a great quote that stops everybody from playing. It's complexity is the enemy of execution. When something is too complex, we don't engage with it. So the way you bring simplicity to a topic is being exposed to it often. So become exposed to agentic AI, become exposed to AI, watch videos, play, experiment, create groups of friends that go around and play together around agentic AI. So you can simplify the technology and become friendly with it. The second thing you want to do is you want to start practicing real life scenarios with it. Start practicing in ways that it can engage with and rehearse in ways that make you comfortable with the technology. There's nothing else to do, because anytime something is strange and too complex, we avoid it. Our brains delete it, distort it, and generalize it constantly without even realizing we're doing it. So we have to become much more clear on the simplification of the future and the adoption of the future. And it's only done through exposure. There's nothing else. Once you get exposure to it, you can start to play with it. But unless you got exposure to it, you haven't started. And so there's obviously millions of platforms you can play with, millions of agentic AI robots you can play with, but people aren't doing it because they're still caught up in doing what they've always done and also avoiding it at all costs because they're scared of it. So simplification and adoption are really the only basic things that we could be doing to evolve into it.
I love that. You know, I think it's just, we got to get our hands dirty,
get busy
into it.
Yes, exactly.
Busy, become a creator.
Don't be not a consumer. Exactly. 99% of the world are consuming. 1% are creating. Become a creator. Stop consuming. And you know, when friends of mine say to me, I've got to get my kids off social media, I'm like, no, make your kids creators on social media, because social media is not going anywhere. Be a creator, not a consumer. Become part of the system rather than consuming from the sidelines. It's a simple scenario. Yeah.
No, I mean, I just got a 3D printer for my daughter. She's going to start designing 3D. And she's like, I can't wait to make stuff. You know, so like,
there we go.
Getting that mindset from a young kid. She wants to be the maker. You know, you got to make and build. To thrive.
And what's her YouTube channel name? Because I did say, I think you were putting songs together for her, or something like that. You were telling me.
So we've been making some AR songs and some AR music, and she's planning an album release soon.
Yes,
she's
man.
only 5, so her album's going to be around, you know, poo poo bum bum wee wee songs.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's coming soon. We've got 7
brilliant.
tracks already. So John, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time. Pleasure. And you know, your insights are incredible, and we're going to be following you throughout the year. You know, maybe just where do people follow you if they want to, you know, catch up with you? Or
look, John Sanei. I'm so lucky. There's only one John Sanei in the world. I've Googled it myself a few times. There's only one John Sanei. So I'm across all socials. I'm constantly sharing. So please join me. It would be wonderful to have you along the ride. So thank you so much for this opportunity, Mick.
Thank you so much, John. And you know, if agentic AI is the force multiplier of intelligence, then perhaps leadership, trust, and human depth becomes the ultimate competitive advantage. This is season 6 of Exponential Africa, and the future is already here. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week, where we're going to be talking about Claudebot, this incredible new AI agent that has taken over our lives. Thanks, and catch you on the next one. Cheers.